The little restaurant was nearly empty, the owner counting pennies just to keep the lights on. Then the door opened, and an old homeless man shuffled inside, his clothes torn, his eyes hollow. The few customers sneered, some muttered for him to leave. But the owner did the unthinkable. He fed him. What happened next would change his life forever. The midday rush had passed, and the small restaurant sat in quiet exhaustion. The scent of fried chicken and warm bread still lingered in the air, but the tables were nearly empty. Marcus, the owner, stood behind the counter, staring at the register that never seemed to fill enough. Bills piled higher than the coins inside. He sighed, rubbing his tired hands. Hands roughened not just by work, but by years of struggle. Marcus was no stranger to hardship. As a young man, he had served his country, wearing the uniform with pride. He had marched through deserts, slept under broken skies, and carried brothers who never came home. He came back alive but hollow, his body bearing scars no one saw. His dream had been simple: open a small place, cook meals that tasted like love, and give people a corner of peace in a restless world. But dreams don't always pay the rent. And now, his little restaurant was hanging by a thread. The bell above the door jingled, and everyone turned. A man stepped in, an old homeless man, beard tangled, clothes torn, eyes dull with hunger. His smell of rain and dirt carried through the air, making some customers wrinkle their noses. A couple at the corner whispered to each other. Another customer muttered, "He doesn't belong here." Marcus watched silently. His chest tightened, not with disgust, but with memory. He remembered nights on deployment when rations ran out and hunger chewed through men's spirits. He remembered comrades who gave their last bread to another. And he remembered his mother, a woman who never had much but who always said, "If you've got food, you've got enough to share." The old man shuffled toward the counter, his voice cracked with shame. "Please, anything, even scraps." The whispers grew sharper. Some laughed under their breath. The young cashier, embarrassed, looked to Marcus for an answer. The easy choice would have been to turn the man away. Keep order. Keep the paying customers comfortable. But Marcus didn't move toward the easy choice. He stepped out from behind the counter, walked to the old man, and placed a hand on his shoulder. "Sit down," he said quietly. "You're going to eat." The room stilled. One woman scoffed, grabbing her purse as though feeding a hungry man was an insult. Another customer muttered, "This place won't last long if he keeps doing that." But Marcus ignored them. He went into the kitchen, his movements slow but sure. He filled a plate, not scraps, not leftovers, but a full meal. Fried chicken golden and crisp, mashed potatoes smooth with butter, collard greens rich with seasoning. He poured water into a clean glass and carried it to the man's table. The old man's hands shook as he lifted the fork. Tears welled in his eyes as he took the first bite. For a moment, silence spread, heavy and unexplainable. The man ate slowly, savoring each bite like it was his first in years. Marcus stood nearby, not for thanks, not for praise, but simply to see dignity returned to someone the world had stripped of it. Then something happened that no one expected. A man in a gray suit who had been sitting near the window put down his newspaper. He had watched everything quietly, his face unreadable. He walked to the counter, pulling out his wallet. Without a word, he paid not only for his meal, but for every unpaid bill stacked in Marcus's register. He left a card on the counter, pressing it firmly into Marcus's hand. "I know who you are," the man said softly. "I've read about your service, and I know what you just did. Call me tomorrow." With that, he walked out. Marcus stared at the card. On it was the name of a man who owned one of the largest food distribution companies in the state. Someone whose influence could save or sink small restaurants like his. The next day, Marcus called. And what began as one act of kindness turned into something far greater. The man in the suit became his silent partner, ensuring the restaurant never again struggled to buy ingredients or pay the bills. But more importantly, word spread. People began to come not just for the food, but for the story. A story of a restaurant where dignity mattered more than dollars. Soon there were lines at the door. Customers who once sneered returned, ashamed, but eager to be part of something greater. Marcus never turned anyone away. Not the hungry, not the broken, not the forgotten. And when asked why, his answer was always the same. Because respect is a meal everyone deserves. The homeless man returned often, cleaner now, steadier, with a little hope in his eyes. Sometimes he helped sweep the floors, sometimes he simply sat and ate. To Marcus, he was no longer homeless. He was a man with a name, a man with dignity restored. The whispers of scorn that had once filled the restaurant were replaced with something else. Silence of respect, nods of understanding, and moments where strangers paid for one another's meals. Marcus became known not just as a restaurant owner, but as a reminder that kindness, even when it costs something, never comes back empty. And years later, when people told the story of his little place, they never spoke first of the food, though it was good. They spoke of the day a poor black restaurant owner fed an old homeless man, and how that single act of humanity changed everything. Powerful quotes from the story. If you've got food, you've got enough to share. Respect is a meal everyone deserves. Kindness, even when it costs something, never comes back empty. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can ripple into something far greater than we imagine. Feeding one man changed Marcus's life, but more than that, it changed a community. Do you believe small actions can create big change? Share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're watching from. We love hearing your stories. Subscribe for more cinematic, emotional stories of silent strength and unseen heroes.